Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. My name is Angie Boggs, and I am the Senior Director of Program Implementation for Save the Children's Rural Ed programs. I oversee all of our program work across the U.S. I've been with Save the Children for 8 years, and I am based in Kentucky. As we start today, I would like to tell you a story about a little boy named Lucas. I met Lucas in my previous role when I served as the Kentucky State Director. Lucas was in the 3rd grade when I met him. Before he started our programs, he didn't enjoy reading and he really struggled. He once tested a full grade level below his classmates when he was in the 2nd grade. When I met him that day in the 3rd grade, his teacher told me that he was now a top student and he was reading at a 5th grade level. Our in-school and after-school programs had helped him discover that books were interesting and exciting to him, and they gave him the confidence that he needed and that he had been missing up to that point. Children like Lucas make this work so important and so worth it each and every day. I'm so excited to welcome you all to today's call. As we all know, the world and our normal routines came to a sudden halt in March. Although much of our life stopped, Save the Children's work across rural America did not. In fact, our teams buckled down and they started working even harder because we knew at that time that the risk to children was so much higher that for those, especially those that were already living in poverty in rural communities. I'm so excited to be able to have some of my amazing colleagues join me on this call as we share about the work that's been taking place in the United States during COVID response and how we're supporting back to school, and we're ready to serve children and families this fall. As a mom myself, I have 4 kids in both elementary and middle school. I can tell you that right now this back to school season is anything but normal. But we're getting up each day and we're doing the best we can with the circumstances we've been given. This is in large part because we know as a family that education is a key to success now and in my children's future. In my home state of Kentucky, we are 100% virtual right now due to an order of the governor through September 28th. So we're expecting some big changes in my household next week, and everyone's getting pretty excited about those potential changes. Before we get started into our conversation, I do want to cover some logistics to ensure that you can participate in this call. Please note that everyone's line is muted and we are recording this call. To ask a question, please type it in the chat box. If you're not on Zoom and instead you've called in, you can also email your questions to events@savechildren.org. While we're talking, please feel free to type questions into the chat box as they occur to you as well. We have colleagues here to help with the chat box management, so we'll be sure that we're not missing your questions. Today, I am honored to be joined by 3 amazing and dedicated leaders from Save the Children's U.S. programs. Saran Mitchell is joining us. She is an early childhood senior specialist based in rural California, and she has been working for Save the Children since 2008. Over the past 12 years, Saran has coached home visitors and California colleagues on the best way to grow positive parent-caregiver-child relationships. Relationships make a tremendous difference in a child's success and healthy growth. Saran, welcome. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Kari Garvin, who serves as Save the Children's Executive Director of our Head Start and Early Head Start programs in rural communities across 4 states. Those states are Arkansas, North Carolina, North Dakota, and Louisiana. Kari has dedicated his career to delivering and improving Head Start and Early Head Start programs across the nation. Welcome, Kari. Finally, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Leslie Graham, who serves as Save the Children's Director of Community Impact. Like me, Leslie has dedicated the last 8 years to this awesome organization and improving the lives of kids across rural America. Welcome, Leslie. So let's go ahead and get started. We lead early education programs for kids 0 to 5 and elementary school age with a focus on kindergarten through 3rd grade and Head Start and Early Head Start programs. Our primary goals are to ensure that children are starting kindergarten ready to learn and reading at 3rd grade level by the end of 3rd grade. That's the critical time when a child transitions from learning to read to reading to learn. And so much of their future success is tied to this early indicator of learning. Across more than 200 rural communities in 12 states where we work, school has started back for programs in all of our states. Right now, if you were to go visit any 2 of them, you would see that almost no 2 schools look alike, and definitely no 2 states look alike. We have worked closely with school districts to develop plans that not only support teachers and their efforts, but most importantly, we want to support children and families. We know that children are coming off of the longest summer ever, and I can affirm that. It's been the longest summer ever, and the learning loss has taken place over the summer can be significant for some children. We are working to ensure that children are getting support services that they need, whether they are attending 5 days a week in person or doing a hybrid schedule of a few days a week, or if they're still 100% in a virtual setting for school. Approximately 2/3 of our partner school districts are hosting some type of in-person instruction, which means our frontline staff are able to help support learning and catch children up in both reading and math. Over the course of our conversation, I'll share more about our school age programs, but I wanted to go ahead and open the conversation up with a question to Saron. Saron, could you please share more about the ways that Save the Children remains committed to our youngest learners, babies, toddlers, and young children up to age 5? What are some ways we've supported parents in this back to school season?
Well, thank you, Angie, for that question on how we've been focusing on early education during the response. We've continued to work very hard to support our pregnant women and families that have children 0 to 5. It's been important to us that families know that we're meeting them where they are. That's emotionally and physically. We wanted them to know that we're there for them, we're listening with our ears, and we're ready to serve. We've ramped up our early childhood efforts through our home visitation program by offering our visits, which used to happen bi-weekly, to now weekly. Our remote home visits are happening by telephone, by text messaging, and also FaceTime and other social media platforms. We always start our conversations with asking, how are you doing? How are your children doing? It's important to us that we know that families are doing fine and that they're navigating through all of this uncertainty. We have been continuing to offer early childhood education based with research and through promising practices, and also sharing with families that we're here, we understand, and that we want to do everything that we can to make sure that we create some normalcy for our children. We've continued to provide services, and this year we provided our state-of-the-art Kinder Boost program, which is a 2-week intensive program led by a certified educator. And it's all to help children, 4 and 5-year-olds, get prepared for kindergarten. This year, we also provided our Transition to Kindergarten Readiness Kits, which was a real hit across the country. We served over 1,000 children with those kits. The kits were chock full of books, learning materials to also support children with their kindergarten readiness. Here is a little guy here in the picture. His name is Udiel. Udiel this summer learned how to not only write numbers, recognize numbers, learn early math skills, but also he learned how to write his name. His mom would report to the early childhood coordinator in his community that she was so happy to see that she was able to be that teacher and, most important, educator of her child's life. During the pandemic, we've also had lots of families feeling uncertain about what's happening in their households. They're isolated, and feelings of fear and not knowing what's coming next. And what our early childhood coordinators did for these families is provided lots of rich resources to let them know that while things were uncertain, we could still work on ensuring that their child was ready to learn and prepare for kindergarten. I think about some of the stories I heard. One, Christina, who's been in our program, a mom of 2. and her child, Gustavo, who had been in our program or who is in our program since birth. He is now 3 years of age. And during this time of COVID, in early March, her husband, who worked in another state, fell ill and died of COVID. The first thing this parent did was she called her home visitor and asked, "What do I do?" The early childhood coordinator, her home visitor, helped her with how to get to where her husband was so that she could take care of her husband's services, leaving her 2 children behind because she was so concerned about the children contacting COVID. This is just one example how not only our coordinators support families with education, but they also support them with meeting their needs, whether it be psychosocial or navigating towards community resources to help their families with basic needs. We have so many stories, so many success stories of how children are thriving, how children are getting the necessary services that they need, and how we're still making those strong homeschool connections so that children are ready to enter school, ready to learn.
Thank you, Saran. Okay, my next question is for Kari. Kari, Save the Children leads Head Start and Early Head Start programs in rural communities in 4 states. Can you tell us about your team's efforts during the COVID response to ensure that children can return to this essential program?
Absolutely, Angie, happy to do that, and good afternoon, everyone. So as you pointed out, we operate actually 6 different Head Start and Early Head Start programs across 4 states in rural America. And so as similar to what Saran just kind of laid out for us, we have had to make similar adjustments and modifications to our service delivery model. We've actually had to adapt it to fit the situation. So we've done a couple things. The first is that we have the term that you'll often hear is a hybrid model. And so we have also implemented, or we are implementing, a hybrid model where we have some of our children continuing on with center-based services, but others are being served virtually and remotely. So for those who are continuing on, we've reduced our center-based capacities to about 60% to kind of help our teachers with social distancing, and you imagine, trying to maintain that or manage that with children who are 3 to 5 years old can be difficult. So we have about 60% center-based capacity. The other 40% of our children are being served remotely, and that remote service is characterized by about 3 or 4 very, very specific services. So we have live remote instruction where we have our teachers who are still working live through the Zoom platform, presenting lessons based off of real lesson plans and individualized to meet the needs of each child who is being served in that virtual classroom. So we have about 3 to 5 children and families participating in those virtual classrooms. And then Head Start, because it's not just about preschool education, but it also includes health services, nutrition services for children, health services for children, and also a parent engagement component. We are continuing that work as well. So our parent engagement work is kind of shifted to, it's remote. So we engage with parents either over telephone or Zoom to help them to develop goals to meet the needs of their families. It's almost like a call center style. But we also convene virtual parent meetings and continue that work as well. And then not to leave out our children who are served and families who are served virtually. We still provide, we are sustaining our meal service for those families because we do work with some of the children and families who are in the deepest poverty in rural communities. And so we recognize that, and we have continued our meal service. So even if a family is being served remotely, we are making our meals available, breakfast and lunch, but primarily through a grab and go system. Families can pick up a hot meal every day if they choose to do that as well. And so we've shifted that in that sense. And I just want to just underscore one last point, if I may here, which is, something that we've learned through all of this is that the critical value, we always understood that Head Start and Early Head Start services were of critical value. But I think the thing that we've learned the most and our communities have learned the most is that Head Start and Early Head Start programs are really critical to the development of the workforce, and it really does help working families to get back to work. So not only are we providing a service for children and families to support their development, but it is a critical component to deliver a service, a child care service, or an early childhood education service at a time when individuals need to get back to work, and now families don't have to worry about what will happen to their children, what should or what can happen with their children since they have to get back to work. So we've become a reliable and steady placement for children and families at a time when things are just so uncertain. So the last thing I'd like to just share, if I may, is just a couple of anecdotal notes. And our North Dakota program is the one that's been in session the longest, and we've already been getting some positive feedback by virtue of the fact that our services continue there. And so two quick things to point out. The first is that we have one family very recently who just kind of reported back to our program director to note that in their daughter's behavior, they noticed that her behavior had improved at home significantly, and they were attributing that to the fact that their daughter was now able to be in a stable environment with a routine during the day, and so with real socialization experiences with her peers. And so now she wasn't acting out at home as she had been doing when COVID at first had onset, and then services were disrupted. So that's a bright spot for us. And the second is that there's a second child who a family opted to actually go with the virtual services because they had concerns about the social contact, but they actually appreciated that and said that their child is one who is very shy. And so the fact that that daughter was able to continue to engage virtually in spite of the fact that she was kind of overcome with a bit of shyness, was a bright spot for them, because those services could continue in an environment that was kind of less intimidating. So this is how we've adapted our services, and we look forward to what's ahead.
Great, thank you, Kari. Next question is for Leslie. Leslie, sadly, we know that child-related hunger has tripled in our communities across the U.S. during this pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Save the Children is doing to ensure that kids receive the nutrition and the meals they rely on at school, both during these hybrid days and our remote learning days?
Yeah, thank you, Angie. And unfortunately, you're right. It is sad. We know that child food insecurity is most pervasive in rural areas, even before the pandemic. And these effects on childhood hunger have been exacerbated, especially in rural places where families struggle with unreliable transportation and physical isolation. It's common for the nearest grocery store to be over 45 minutes away. Travel to the nearest school, an hour bus ride away. So as you can imagine, access to food can be very challenging to our families, and especially during times of school closures and virtual learning. Recognizing that over 30 million children across America rely on both breakfast, lunch, and sometimes even dinner provided by schools during the free and reduced lunch program. So this is where the good news comes into play. Save the Children is well positioned within our rural communities. We have long-standing relationships, deep programmatic presence, and really our ability to be flexible and quickly adapt to meet the needs of families and children. So in the early days of the pandemic, seems like a long time ago now, with school closures, it was an all hands on deck approach to ensure that children did not go hungry. Everyone immediately mobilized to support our school partners, our local communities, in repurposing local staff. So staff who may have typically led supplemental literacy programs or worked in the after-school program, they were repurposed, and they were working tirelessly, as some call it, with skeleton crews to ensure that meals were prepared, they were packaged, and they were delivered to families. So we had staff riding school bus routes for hours each day, delivering food directly to families, and delivering food alongside learning materials, books, other resources to keep children's minds actively learning and their bellies full. Then summer came along, and that presented even new and different challenges for us, but we were able to quickly jump in. We supported summer feeding programs this summer. Again, brand new territory for us, but we recognized a need, and we granted nearly $900,000 to feed children this summer. We worked with schools, we worked with local community-based organizations to feed more children, to extend the duration of existing feeding programs, and ensure that staff and partners had PPE and they had all necessary equipment to feed children safely. To date, so really March through August, I'll say, alongside our school partners, our staff, we are so very proud to have supported the preparation and delivery of more than 8 million meals. And these meals, I'll say, were provided to families who were unfortunately already struggling. Many single-headed households, many now facing unemployment. We see several grandparents raising grandchildren, families who struggled in providing just the basic needs, even being able to put food on the table. As one mom in Washington State expressed, I wasn't sure how our family would get by. As a single mom of 3 boys, COVID-19 has been life-altering. I was concerned I wouldn't have enough to get us through. But the weekly food boxes, the additional items like tissue paper and cleaning supplies have not just helped get us through, but they've let us know someone else cares about us and that we aren't alone. So families were very appreciative and they relied heavily on our support. Another mom described, I feel spoiled, but I also feel relieved. We saw some other really creative innovations through the use of mobile feeding units, such as Gus the Bus in Tennessee or Rosie the Readiness Bus in Kentucky. These are very sought after resources that we definitely need more of in rural places. These are economical and multi-purpose, and they allow our staff to get out into those outer lying parts of the communities, getting down very long, narrow driveways and dirt roads where even school buses can't reach, getting right to families' doorsteps. So this is really huge in rural places where families are constrained by geography and limited transportation. One other innovative approach that I'd like to share quickly is that of cash transfers. So something that we traditionally see more of in an international setting, but it's proving to be of great support to families domestically as well. We have over 700 families participating in a pilot within Kentucky and California, receiving additional cash assistance to use as they see fit to meet their family's most pressing needs. And in hearing from families, many times these needs are most closely related to food. Finally being able to put food on the table to feed a large blended and multi-generational family living under one roof. Or keeping the lights on by paying past due electricity bills. And as one mother shared, just being able to purchase a car seat and clothes for her young baby. Another mom in California brought to tears, expressing that the cash transfer program came just in time, just when our family needed it the most. So I could talk about this for hours. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished and the innovations that we're seeing across the organization in such a short amount of time. And I look forward to the child hunger work in the months ahead.
Thanks, Leslie. That leads right into my next question, because there has been a lot of incredible work happening in this area for us for the COVID response. So we know that preparing and delivering more than 8 million meals is no small feat, and it's quite incredible. I'm so proud that Save the Children has augmented our support and program offering to include this area of work. We know that hunger affects a child's ability to learn, and it's something we've always talked about. Can you share a bit more about our path forward in this area?
Yes. So the research is clear, and our experience in rural places tell us too that hungry children can't learn, and they can't develop to their fullest potential. So as you mentioned, Angie, actually at the top of the call, we simply can't be successful in achieving those educational outcomes if we don't directly address the barriers that our children and our families are facing, and really their most basic of needs. So our early childhood and education work packaged with this new focus on childhood hunger is really going to be impactful for children across rural America. We have leapt into this space, definitely prompted by the pandemic, but as you say, it's a need that we've known we need to address, we've seen for quite some time. We've learned a lot over the past few months, fast and furiously, I'll say, and we're applying these lessons, these experiences to our strategy development process. We're committed to addressing food insecurity as a permanent fixture in what we do. We have also invested in a new food security advisor within the U.S. that has extensive experience in this space, so that will be a great addition to the team. And we're working to outline a more strategic and focused approach to support hunger needs across the early childhood continuum. So thinking prenatally through elementary years and across settings. So at home, in schools, and throughout communities. So really considering the development of this multifaceted approach, supporting children's needs more holistically. We've talked a lot about this lately internally, and we've all come to the conclusion that we have huge organizational ambitions, but we also know that we can do it. We're cut out for this work. We're well equipped to enter this space, and we're in it for the long haul. We want to ensure that we can remove the barriers to children's learning and success. I'll also just quickly note that we recognize also the power of partnership and just how critical partners are, especially in times of crisis. So from the local level, whether it be our churches, our schools, our health departments, we rely on those strong relationships that we've built over time in communities, as well as our state level networks and even nationally. So we're working right now alongside other key players such as Share Our Strength to drive additional resources and dollars into rural places. We're working alongside the USDA and food distributors to implement the Farmers to Families Food Box program across rural places. So we're jumping in feet first. We also recognize that it's big work. Rural childhood hunger is a huge need, and we can't do it alone. So we do look to partner with other organizations across all levels to really strengthen and sustain this work for kids. This back to school time is also a pivotal period for learning to see what new challenges or needs are going to be arising this fall. And again, as we did in the spring and in the summer, we'll continue to listen, to learn from our communities, from our families, and do as best we can to support the needs. One partner in Tennessee said it, we truly couldn't do it without you. And I would say especially so in rural communities where resources are scarce. So we're proud of what we've achieved thus far. We do have our work cut out for us long term, but we're proud of our organizational commitment to really tackle childhood hunger so that children have a strong foundation to thrive as learners and in life.
Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, it sounds like there's lots of work to be done, but lots of great work happening. Saran, next question is for you. Over the course of this pandemic, we have seen some amazing innovations come out of our programs as our staff have adapted to these never before seen challenges. Can you share about some of the innovations you've seen this year?
Yes, and thank you, Angie, and such a great lead, Leslie. The innovations have been incredible. I think of our folks, our partners that are in the field, our early childhood coordinators are at the heart of the magic that happens in our communities. They are the secret sauce, I kind of think, I feel. And they put all of the training and their knowledge and skills into the innovation and put it into action. We've just been doing so much to make things that had normally been impossible, possible. Just even thinking about when we are talking with our partners, for the team that I support, we speak weekly and we just start with just celebrating the work, celebrating the innovations, building our communities of practice and sharing ideas with each other. And through that, we've had additional innovation. When I think about the early childhood coordinators, I really think with this work, they bring their heart and their hands and their passion to do this work. One coordinator, Diana, who works in California, she shared with me that she was working with a family the mother was just feeling really overwhelmed. Not only did she have 2 children that were under 5, she also had school-age children. And for school-age children, you know, for most of our parents, they hadn't had the opportunity to be on Zoom calls, and a lot of the students were using Zoom. Mom was feeling like, I don't know how I can help. I don't know what day it is. And so Diana shared with me, what do I do? What do I have to give? And so through reflection, she decided, I know what I can do. I can do read alouds, and she created a YouTube channel that she could share with families. It's been a hit. Families love it. It gives children the opportunity to see her, to provide some normalcy to their day, and then also to remind parents the importance of reading to their children daily. Through her YouTube channel, she also gives tips on how families could utilize some of the resources that we have, such as Vroom, and then also giving them ideas how they could use the books to create learning experiences in the home. But most importantly, to continue to have routines such as bedtime routines and reading in the evenings. Another coordinator, Brenda, she started off with providing weekly text messages to her families, giving the families ideas for things that they could do inside the home and outside of the home, using everywhere around their home as a learning experience. Well, from there, she advanced her work. She dug into the Google site and developed a weekly newsletter chock full of resources for the community, whether it's a food distribution or where they could find supports for anything virtually. And then it also had our books for sharing and so forth. Virginia, who also works in California, developed learning kits, thinking about the whole child, thinking about all of the influencers of that child's life, not just the parents, but thinking about the siblings, the grandparents who might be in the home, and providing materials for that child and their caregivers to be a part of the learning experience, to continue learning for the children. Veronica also thought about, what else can I do? What else can I lend? And so Veronica is also a great cook. And so we received a number of wonderful resources by way of gifts of in-kind. And one was an Instapot. And so Veronica thought, I can help parents with just creating some downtime for themselves, knowing that they're feeling overwhelmed, with providing some time for self-care through cooking and sharing tips through a YouTube channel that she created, providing a cooking demonstration. Here is our Vroom tips in action with find recyclables around the home to create a telescope. And there's Gustavo, who I spoke of earlier, with his sister, his older sister and cousin, enjoying Vroom tips. We've done a number of things to just make things more inviting for families, using the internet and social platforms to create virtual experiences. Just this week, one of our coordinators decided she was going to do a virtual field trip, going on a safari. And so it just really seemed like a great way to get parents to think outside of the box, but also creating an experience for the children. I can go on and on about all of the different ways that our partner staff have been innovative around their work, but it's just been incredible to see that everyone feels empowered to put their skills into action.
Thank you, Saron. These are great pictures and great stories. There has been a lot of amazing innovations come out of this work. Next question I have is for Kari. Kari, as your staff and students are heading back into the classroom, can you tell us about some of the modifications that are being made to the programs as a result of this pandemic?
Sure, be happy to. So here again, I mean, we are this is a new frontier for us, right? This is new for us, and we very quickly made the decision that as we are making modifications, that we would also honor this as a time for discovery, right? Stretching our thinking about what's possible as it relates to remote services and all the rest. So in terms of the adaptations and the changes and the modifications, I spoke to some of those before, but again, I do just want to emphasize one thing for sure, and that is the detail that we're giving to our live instruction, and again, what is possible to do in a meaningful way or to conduct in a meaningful way remotely. There are other entities out there, other programs who sort of made the decision to go with pre-recorded material for young children, and that wasn't the way that we decided to go. So the live instruction remotely, having real engagement with the teachers based on real lesson plans, according to the developmental needs of each child, is a big thing for us. And so we've had to do that. Of course, we've had other modifications, like we have to do temperature checks and really screen individuals in a way that we didn't before, to make sure that environments are healthy and safe. So these are some of the changes that we've had. But as we are still, that we've made, but as we're still in this period of discovery, we are learning that our needs are changing as well. And so when you think about the support that we need to provide services for children birth to 5 and their families, our infrastructure support is something that we have a strong need for. For example, our cleaning protocols have had to change for obvious reason, and it can cost as much as $4,000 for one COVID cleaning of one center, right? And so that wasn't something that we would have budgeted for in previous months and certainly previous years. So that's a significant change. Also, we're becoming much more tech dependent now, right? Again, we operate in rural communities, places where the internet might not be as strong or even as available as other parts of the country. So we help outfit our families with hotspots and tablet devices and things like that. So that we have a real need for support in that area. And then also PPE, and I know that's come up a lot, but of course we're washing hands more hand sanitizer, the masks, the shields, and all of that. Shields are really important for our environment because since we work with very young children, it's important for our young children to be able to see the full facial expression of their adult caregiver. So shields are really important for us as well. And then the last point I would just make here as we look ahead, just to remember that the children that we're serving really are part of a continuum that doesn't end on December 31st, right? So we're hoping to prepare, our cycle, our program year cycle runs primarily from August to May. And then of course there's a summer break. But the point is that as we are preparing children for kindergarten readiness and beyond, it's just the idea that support, that continuum of support is really needed beyond this calendar year into next year, and then for our even younger children, or for our youngest children, and for subsequent years as we are continuing to work with those families to get them ready for kindergarten entry and beyond. So that's kind of where we are. And again, I thank you for the opportunity.
Great, thanks so much, Kari. Based on the discussions I've heard from the whole team, it's so evident to me that Save the Children did not hit pause when the pandemic shut everything down in March. It felt like our world hit pause, but we did not. In fact, our staff worked harder and more creatively than ever before. And I really wish, Leslie, that it hadn't taken a pandemic to produce some of the amazing innovations like going into the food insecurity work, but I'm glad that we're here now and that we're able to move into this work. At this point, we'd love to answer some of the great questions that we've received from you in the chat box and the event's email address. And I'm going to get us started with one of our questions. We have a question in the chat box from Amy, and the question is, how many children in the rural areas are you reaching, especially in the food program? So I'll go ahead and answer this one. I'm proud to share that since the start of our COVID response work, which you heard, we're centered on keeping learning going and also ensuring that kids do not go hungry. Across our rural communities, we have served more than 624,000 kids. I know the numbers are going to continue to grow. I've seen more data coming in this week as more work is being done, and we'll continue to refine our food insecurity and child hunger work as we move through this. But at this time, it's 624,000 kids that we have reached. Next question is going to come over to Saran. And while others, feel free, like I said, to keep putting your questions in the chat box or send it to the events email address. But Saran, I have a question for you as we're waiting for those questions. I know my young kids at home, they go through phases of being sad and they really do miss their friends. Their world stopped in March and they're missing that. And the normalcy of a routine, which is something that we all crave. Have you seen an increase in stress of the children you serve? And how is Save the Children helping that stress?
Yeah, so we have definitely heard from our parents that the children are missing their friends, especially the school-age children. But for our little ones, our virtual experience have really helped to create this sense of, you're still there, my friend. And I'll give you an example. I was observing in a play and learn program or play and learn group, and there were about 12 children on the screen, and they were just so actively engaged, and I saw their smiles, and that just let me know that, you know, while we're not always able to bring the families together right now, that this has been a good gap filler to be able to have these virtual experiences. But we encourage our parents to, if they have a smartphone, to make calls to family members and to share their face on the screen, or also to create photo albums of their loved ones so that children can see, you know, pictures of the children just as some type of connection. Telephone is also very good too.
Great, thanks, Saran. All right, another question that we've had come through is, do you have a mitigation plan if a child or a teacher tests COVID positive? And I'll answer that one. So the answer is absolutely yes, we do. As a leader in global child health, we have many new health and safety procedures that are related to COVID-19 to keep not only our children and our teachers, but also the adults who serve and educate and keep everybody healthy and safe. Our mitigation plans were created in concert with guidance from the CDC. We've worked with local state departments of health and our own learnings in the past when we've combated global health pandemics like Ebola. So yes, we do have plans in place, and it's something that we continue to work on and refine as things come up. Okay, do we have other questions? Leslie, I heard you mention Gus the Bus and Rosie the Readiness Bus. I have personally seen Rosie the Readiness Bus, and she's one of my favorite things ever. But could you tell us a little bit more about those two buses and where they are and how they work?
Yeah, sure. So they're all the buzz lately, actually. So I talked a little bit about the mobile learning and feeding units. This is becoming a much sought after kind of addition to programming. So rather than kind of relying on families to come to a centralized location, we're able to take our staff and our resources, our books, our learning materials, and meals directly to families. And so Rosie the Readiness Bus is stationed in Perry County, Kentucky, and Gus the Bus is stationed in Tennessee. We're also seeing other mobile feeding units and learning units popping up in Washington State and in Arkansas. And this is really just a way to get out and about in the communities, in those outlying areas that are hard to reach, and reach families, as Saran said, reach families where they are.
Thanks, Leslie. All right, looking to see if we have any more questions that have came in. All right, I think we'll have a follow-up question, Leslie, for our food insecurity work that has come through. And the question is about what food that we provide to families. You know, I know we're working with some different groups and there's different things going out to families. Can you help us talk about what the food is that is going out to our families?
Sure, yeah. So throughout the spring and summer, many of the meals that we were providing were in direct coordination with our school partners. So relying on healthy school lunches, breakfast. So it kind of runs the gamut, but in accordance with USDA guidelines. This fall, we're seeing, and we're super excited about the Farmers to Families Food Boxes program. And so some of the food that we're able to provide directly to families within that initiative is actual meat, so pre-cooked meat, dairy, as well as fruits and vegetables. So we're trying to make sure that families have access to healthy foods to keep our children nourished and have access to those critical unmet needs.
Great, thank you, Leslie. I just want to say thanks again to everyone for taking the time to learn more and hear firsthand about our work in this critical back to school time, working to support our nation's youngest learners. I wanted to underscore that Save the Children remains steadfast in our commitment to serve children across rural America, ensuring that they're learning and that they're also getting nutritious meals, as we've heard, to grow healthy and strong. Your generosity helps us continue to serve kids like Chloe in Mississippi, who she keeps asking her grandmother Sharon when COVID is going to leave so she can play with her friends again. Or Hunter in Kentucky, who races to meet the school bus, Gus the bus, every time and every day just to grab that healthy breakfast and lunch to keep him fueled up and learning from home. We can't thank you enough for your support in helping us to continue this work. Thank you.